Day number 2 of the second Winter Series hosted by EGC. $2,000 on the line, but before we get to that, we have to sort out these best of threes, these semi-finals. And we're going to be opening up with MarineLorD and VortiX, which is going to be on your screen in a second. Just to recap, these two did face off earlier in the format in Winter Series 1, where MarineLorD was able to dispatch VortiX 2-1, but it was one hell of a hype series. It was rapid, it was quick, there was no waiting around, and it was overwhelming strategies from both sides by the 20-minute mark. Let's see if today can deliver something similar as we're hopping into game now. And already opening up with something a little bit different here. Look what we've got. And I just realized I never reset these. So VortiX, by the way, on the way here, he had some challenges along the way. It wasn't the easiest at time. I think we finished on MarineLorD. I don't know why I replaced him there. We finished on MarineLorD series yesterday where he went up against Beastie. He managed to dispatch him 2-0. Meanwhile, MarineLorD, in comparison to VortiX's journey, he kind of chilling. MarineLorD beat everybody 2-0. He beat Lafaf 2-0 in the first round. He managed to follow it up by taking out Running in a 2-0. Then it was Casva obliterated 2-0. And then through to even get rid of Lenok. Lenok, who right now, at the time of recording, is ranked 3rd in the world and is a highly decorated StarCraft 2 veteran with over $250,000 in earnings. He also went down 2-0 to MarineLorD. This guy is on fire. VortiX's journey, however, not so easy. He managed to get a free win over Jordan, as Jordan had to pull out the tournament. Kiwium was a 2-0, but then Wham managed to pull a game back from VortiX and make it look close. Beastie Cutie made that series look close, 2-1 in the end for VortiX. It's fair to say that VortiX has been challenged a lot more along the way, but when you look at the caliber of players that both of these lads have faced, it's fair to say that they've had their fair share of difficulty. And the fact that MarineLorD has still managed to obliterate his opponents time and time again speaks volumes to this guy being the champ to beat here, right? And it makes sense. Remember that he did actually win it Series 1 after slaying out against VortiX's brother in the Grand Finals, Lucifron, but that did go to 5 games. So it wasn't easy by any length. And keep in mind that Lucifron is also still in this tournament. He's sitting the other side of the bracket right now, up against the big upsetter here in the semifinals, Don Artie, who managed to knock out Viper 2-0 yesterday. But we'll get around to all that in good time. So, opening up, Highview is always the beginning map in these series, remember? And then the loser chooses the next one. I didn't quite catch the bans here. I'd assume based on the history of these players, though, Mongols probably got banned out, and I wouldn't be surprised if some respect was given to China, but that might have been left in because both of these players are comfortable with it. The interesting part is that VortiX starts with the Abbasids, though. And I've noticed this switchover. A lot more players are engaging with the Abbasid as a pick instead of like a last resort, right? When we think about the way Winter Series 1 played out before Christmas, Abbasids was treated as a throwaway. In fact, MarineLorD in that series up against Lucifron basically baited his opponent in the 4th game to have to finally use his Mongol card, and then MarineLorD picked Abbasids as a throwaway civ and lost the game within about 15 minutes. So not a lot of respect was being shown to Abbasids pre-Christmas. But since then, a lot of players have actually got down to the numbers, they've refined the build, and they've realized that this civ has a most ridiculously powerful timing straight up into Castle Age. As soon as you crack Castle, your siege potential, with the power behind Mangonels now, the ability to siege through buildings as well as armies, puts you vastly ahead of practically any other civ in the game. What does that all translate to? Well, it translates to MarineLorD likely having to apply a lot of pressure in the early phases here. And he can do so as France, but it's not going to be the easiest of civs to overcome when you consider that if you are forced to aggress early as the Abbasids, you can very comfortably build into spears. And that does mean that MarineLorD is likely going to resort back to the classic build for France, which is between 3 and 5 knights, followed up by a double archery range drop, and then you spam out archers to counter out your opponent's spears. That will then force a pivot out of VortiX to go into the archers himself. And although it just seems like you're essentially just trading evenly, the whole point for MarineLorD is that he's slowly winning as long as VortiX doesn't get the room to TC drop. The reason being is, of course, MarineLorD will be producing these villages quicker. So his economy will slowly outscale VortiX if they're on even footings in terms of counting each other out with units. And the importance of this is that it slows down the timing on VortiX's castle up, and it allows you to get there quicker. And you need that in this matchup if you want to win. Otherwise, VortiX will reach that castle. He will look to just get into some infantry, maybe just use the archers, and he'll move a mobile army forward in conjunction with the siege weapons being built in the field to try and close the game out around that 20-25 minute mark. So, VortiX on his way up. Eco Wing, soon to be complete. Skull Cavalry already done, and straight away, first knight will come out. MarineLorD likely to switch over to scouts after that. The other detail in this matchup, of course, is the Abysses don't tend to often engage with pro scouts, something that, of course, the French are happy to do, being in the upper half of civs at choosing that strategy. Now, the question is whether VortiX with this layout is going to look for a secondary TC like we were talking about. He does have a nice choke point that might enable him to drop a TC here, blocking the point, but also allowing him to quickly secure wood lines for the future. He might also look to try and expand further to the north here, where he has got access to these gold veins and these stone. Because the interesting part about this generation is I'd say this gold vein location is a little bit more tight than I've seen usually on High View the last 2 days. I think often we've seen players screwed having to run far away. And where that's good is it's very exploitable for France. This is also why MarineLorD likes France. As I think the majority of his games actually have opened up to France. He likes France on High View for this very reason, is the way that the generation works is these gold veins compared to, say, like Dry Arabia or maybe King of the Hill, like a lot of these different maps, the gold vein is a little bit further away, and the wood lines tend to be split more. And the importance of this is it gives you a lot more wiggle room to try and dive in and snipe out villages. So that's what he's looking for. And this is actually smart detail that I think not that many players have considered. Some players were just going for France out of comfort, but it's clear with the consistency MarineLorD is starting with a Civ, there was a blatant strategy behind it. So always nice to see. An opening is going to be the stable drops into the horseman. What? No. Okay, we've seen this similarly from VortiX before. He knows he's going to get counted out on the horseman. We saw them do this against an English player before who already had spears out. So it looks like VortiX, his intent here is to A, combat on the pro scouts as a potential option, but B, well, I should put that way around. B is the pro scouts option. A is to harass his opponent's economy and force him to guard. If you can force MarineLorD into an on-guard state, then you won't have to worry about these tanky knights diving into your TC and sniping out villages regularly. That being said, I really still would like to see, as a precaution, VortiX taking textiles. It frustrates me so often when you're up against cavalry harassment civs like this that have that high tempo in the feudal age, so many players choose to neglect textiles. MarineLorD at least has an excuse. He wouldn't necessarily expect to be harassed. But VortiX should anticipate it could be a problem. For the moment, it's going to move this horseman out, and he's already going to grind to a halt here. He has to just wrap around, sneak in, and you need something exposed. And look at this MarineLorD. He's already backing off. Wow. That is incredibly disciplined. Backing off the berry bush this early with no signs yet of aggression coming through, a lot of players would have hung around for an extra 10, 15 seconds max, and they might end up losing a village of these horsemen. There we go. Horsemen just trying to interrupt the scouts. Remember, pro scouts already been taken by MarineLorD. VortiX, no signs of going to pro scouts, and he is already getting on the stone, so he's looking to boom up into that secondary TC like we were talking about. He doesn't need to go into the scouts himself, remember. He's got plenty of sheep here, and after that, he can just fold out towards these berry bush lines. In the meantime, fight is going to go on. Wow, what? Oh my god. Is this actually working? That was an impressive amount of damage put onto a knight by your horseman there. It did almost cost you 2, but the cool thing that VortiX can do here is because MarineLorD is out-capped on the horse count right now, he's actually able to cycle these boys out as they get weak. This is actually a cool strategy in theory. You have to think of it like this way, guys. These guys are terrible in melee. Yes, they can do 9 damage compared to like the 29 or whatever it is. I think it goes down about 20. Plus, you get the damage buff, remember, it's France. But the important detail to remember here is, 1, you choose to fight because you're faster. And 2, these knights cost double, right? Look at the difference. 140 food, 100 gold. 100 food, 20 wood. It gives you the edge, and it's also allowing you to harass these scouts. Can he snipe them out, though? Losing a few as he skirts around. Big mistake there. VortiX, he's so committed to try and slow down MarineLorD's gather rate on these deer that he's sacrificing more horsemen than he should. And one final stab. He needs to grab the rest and turn around to stab the scout behind. It looks like he'll be forced to back away, though. But he's forcing the condensing, right? MarineLorD has to now keep a very tight economy, has to respect this. The good news is all this aggression is going to the scouts, which means MarineLorD is just farming to his heart's content. Look at this. Look at 10 villagers on this gold vein. No protection for them at all. The good news from VortiX's perspective, though, is this is all just a ruse. It's a distraction. Because while all the attention is here and MarineLorD is constantly on the defensive, look what's happening back in base. VortiX is building up to his second TC now. He's gonna scale. That was the whole intent of this. He understands that in a drawn-out scenario with no bigger strategy, you're gonna lose by doing this. But this is a tactic, guys. It's the difference that I've been liking to talk about recently, because I think it's something that we don't necessarily discuss enough, is you know, doing things like, for example, just going to horse archers if you're a wrist player. That's a tactic. How do you win, right? Well, the grander strategy is use horse archers to leverage the midfield and take control on, for example, high view, take control of the sacred sites, right? Then you're starting to build a strategy. So VortiX, in similar fashion, I'm building horsemen. That's a tactic. What does that achieve, though? I want to use the horseman to keep him in his base. And then there's an and effect, right? You keep asking questions. What's the intent of this? The intent is to cover this greedy move, knowing that MarineLorD will not scout it out because his scouts are always under attack from the horsemen, and they're also too busy picking up the deer. But MarineLorD, he understands that he's being bamboozled here. He's on the move. VortiX, in the meantime, is wrapping around, looking to snipe out a few villagers. The point is, though, VortiX doesn't have anyone defend him just yet. He's trying to build the Spearman, and this timing might just crack him quickly. Look, he's going for the hardened status on the Spearman first. He hasn't built them out yet. So MarineLorD, if he's quick about this, can snipe in and find several of these villagers because there's too many here to actually protect right now. It's over the 30 threshold. Straight in, onto the gold line. Snipes out 2 already. Third one's going to be picked dry as well. And he's going to raise the mining camp to the ground. And while that's happening, look, back in the other base. Pressure back in response on MarineLorD, but MarineLorD still having the eco advantage and now teching up into castle ahead of VortiX. VortiX, that's the detail that matters here, right? The quantity of horsemen invested in is higher. And as a result, the detail that's hurting him a little bit here is that that food quantity has put him at a disadvantage. He's got the gold, but he hasn't got the food required to go for a tech up yet. With that, MarineLorD sets fires to things, looks to shift around again. Looks like the horsemen have been backed off. Guildhall half complete. And once that tech upgrade comes in, the damage on these knights becomes absolutely disgusting. Attempts to build archery ranges. More racks going down as well. Is getting to the phalanx. This could be the saving grace. But he needs to be careful. He can't lose all these villagers. And look at the wrap in. MarineLorD. He sees the mill, but he doesn't know. VortiX, he dodges this out beautifully. And he min-maxes it. However, this is very greedy. He might get noticed in a second. Spears are engaging. MarineLorD's going to keep retreating. I could not believe the bullet he just dodged there. Taking a 13 villager hit there while you're not teched up as well, you're already a whole age behind, could just completely destroy your mid-game plan here. It's so important, that small T-Dale, that shift back into the corner. It's risky. If you get spotted, you're dead. But VortiX, he doesn't want the middle ground play. He doesn't want to pull them back to the TC and lose 2 or 3 of them. He gambles and he wins here, and he keeps them alive. Meanwhile, MarineLorD just trying to punish a few of VortiX's lads here as they farm. He hasn't even noticed yet. He's too busy looking at the other side of his base. But it looks like he's finally getting archers out, so that'll deter MarineLorD away. MarineLorD, of course, can now start getting into the quality of the matter. Has dropped a stable, so now he's got 2 horse-producing buildings, and he has continued the archer push out. Meanwhile, Knights breaking in before they can get the walls down. Uh-oh. That's not good. VortiX, this has revealed his plan. He wanted all this safe padding. He wanted to be able to extend back here, and that means you know there's more eco back here. MarineLorD can't fully block him off. If he shifted across, these villagers wouldn't even be able to break past this. He'll still lose 1 or 2, but it looks like the phalanx will come in. Nice. He even gets the brace, so he stabs one in, traps him in place. Meanwhile, the Knights, stuck trying to get through the threshold again, will finally make their escape, and now VortiX can wall it up. And the hit, well, 2 or 3 more villagers. The lead is building. MarineLorD, despite the fact it's 1 TC versus 2, courtesy of having this increased villager production rate down to 16 seconds right now and the harassment coming out, he is staying ahead of VortiX. VortiX does have a few dangers lying in his path in the coming minutes, right? When this wood line is gone, when you have to extend, you have to get the walls in place, and that might offer up an opportunity for MarineLorD to plow straight into your base again. So you do have to be careful and aware as VortiX. People just love killing wolves, huh? I think they're kind of cute. I mean, they will bite infantry. Isn't that the most adorable name you've ever seen given to a war unit? They don't really even want war. I will say it's unrealistic they don't hunt in packs. But I think if we introduce that, the roost's going to be even better, so maybe not. And look at this. After all this time, still these deer are sitting here because VortiX never engaged with it. Knights charging in. Baits him off. And here's the archers. They're not vet archers yet, though. Bit of a mistake. MarineLorD, please tell me you're getting that upgrade. Yeah, he's halfway. So he needs to back off for the moment, and then once he gets the vet status, he can turn on this, because they're all just crap right now. Look at this. VortiX, he's stuck in the feudal still. He hasn't even started the tech up. I can just hear the Under Pressure song playing in my head right now. Oh no, the brace! Wow, that is twice now MarineLorD just got caught off guard by that. Remember, guys, the phalanx for the Abbasids gives you double the range on these spears. So that brace has a ridiculous range. It's incredibly deceptive. It's not even the length of this spear. You have to add about another half a spear on that. So he's bracing, and then he's stunning this far out on the Knights. They don't get close enough to get the charge. They never would have in a brace normally. But more importantly, when you think you're skirting and baiting your opponent, you're actually just baiting yourself, and you're stunning 1 or 2 Knights and then getting stabbed out. Really well played by VortiX to be utilizing that. Another small detail that I just don't think gets highlighted enough with Abbasids, but we're starting to see it come into play, considering that this is the start of the series, and it's still been the choice for VortiX to go through. And I think this is not the first time either. I believe VortiX did do this once before to open a series in this tournament already. So he clearly is comfortable and confident with it. And he has definitely played multiple Abbasid games in this tournament so far. Wall's going down. The archers are there now. Needs to be careful. Walks them in blindly. And these choke points is what VortiX needs. He needs to buy time. He needs to look for a way to tech up. He still isn't ready yet. He's saving as much as he can, but the food is suffering. And the archers are too. They're outclassed here. Look at that. The free damage difference, the extra health as well. VortiX, he needs like another good 2-3, actually 3 or 4 minutes. Remember, the tech up time's fixed at 2 minutes. And he's not going to get it at this rate. He needed the berry bushes, but it's on the front line, and this is the problem. There's not enough spearmen here to deter the Royal Knights anymore. They are vetted up. The spear line gone. He's going to have to back up here. The archer count is depleting quickly, and he calls GG. MarineLorD will open this series up with a quick victory over the Abbasids. Yeah, overall, really cool idea coming out from VortiX. I like to see someone trying something different than like the great three, right? Or the top tiers like the Mongols, the French, whatever. I think in this particular matchup, MarineLorD especially, more so than anything else, I don't think it's just the Civ choice. It's the fact that MarineLorD is incredibly good at utilizing France on Highview. We've already seen this in this tournament. It's clearly his go-to choice, right? It's his trump card. I think VortiX knew this, and he intentionally picked Abbasids with this plan in mind, right? But he wasn't prepped for the timing on the aggression. You saw he actually gambled very hard into the Horseman and found very little value. I think that hurt VortiX's game a lot here, but I understood why he'd done it. It was a sacrifice to draw attention away to cover the town center to scale him up. The problem is that the Horsemen don't actually have a lasting impact. They needed another minute of pressure to be able to alleviate and distract long enough that you'd actually reach that critical mass on the eco count. And then if that had occurred in this game, VortiX would have actually had a great defense in place as well as been halfway to Castle Age at the time this game GG'd out. But because he's not able to maintain that pressure, because he's not able to slow down the rate at which scouts are returning the carcasses, and because he can't even dive in with those horsemen, it means that this is an inevitability that MarineLorD is going to take game one. And that's exactly what he does here to open this series. But remember, guys, these are best of threes. So although MarineLorD may have opened it up in this semifinals with a win, he needs to secure one more. And now his infamous French is already gone. And I believe Mongols might have already been banned. I'll have to double check that. So short break, and then we come back for game number 2. And I'm excited to see what VortiX can pull out of the bag, because I think this is far from over. We've seen these guys play together before, right? They play very aggressive and very all in. So it could easily backfire for MarineLorD, or if VortiX does the same, he could easily get himself a first win rather in the second game and force a game 3 here. Fingers crossed we get a series that delivers. Game number 2 is ready to get underway here. MarineLorD, he took an early lead in this series over VortiX, but VortiX is looking to strike back, while MarineLorD is looking to smash this one home 2-0 with something that VortiX historically has loved playing. Although we haven't got to see too much of it out of him this tournament. But yeah, I am talking about the China. China on Boulder Bay, and VortiX chooses to go for the Rus. Now, this is peculiar to me because I have seen VortiX in the 3v3s. He was the Rus boy. Even on Boulder Bay, he was the go-to guy to do the Rus for the team. And it didn't really yield good results for them, to be honest, from what I recall those games. Meanwhile, MarineLorD in those games, in fact, he faced off against VortiX in a 3-on-3. That'll be on the channel soon as well, by the way. And in that 3-on-3, MarineLorD was playing China, and he absolutely stomped the waterfront. MarineLorD is a very scary China player. I think at this point it's fair to say MarineLorD is a very scary most things. But he is extra spicy right now in China. He's kind of cracked it. He's ahead of a lot of players in figuring out the next step for China, which is naval dominance. They are incredible on the sea, okay? In real world, China's navy might still be catching up on the quality. But guess what? In Age of Empires 4, they can be there on quantity due to their quicker production rates on their docks, and they have the quality due to the war junks. And if we talk about a late game scenario, don't get me started on Baoshuans, the best warship in the game, which only China and the Mongols can build. And their opponent is going to be Rus. And Rus on Boulder Bay are very underwhelming for me at the moment. So the concept behind Rus on water hybrid maps is pretty powerful when you think about it, on paper at least. The way it works is you build your fishing fleet, you get your food, you feel good. You're also getting more efficient food at the beginning, remember, because you go on deep water fish, you don't have to return to base. So if it's close, if it's far, it doesn't really hurt your gathering rate at all as the Rus. And then after that, what you do is you convert a few of these boats into attack ships. Like this, by clicking this button, 70 wood, 60 gold per. It takes 20 seconds, and while that 20 seconds is going, your ships move at half speed, but you still click them across towards the enemy's base. It's a huge power spike at the beginning of Feudal. It allows you to sink your opponent's fishing fleet and box them in. Sounds cool, right? Right. But there is a downside. And that downside is that if you, for any reason, fail to secure the waterfront at that point, you suffer greatly with scalability issues. Why? Because look at the interface. You're seeing it right now, right, guys? Load your attack ship, demo ship. Where's the Hulk? Or junk? Or whatever it's meant to. Where's the warship? Where's the Castle and Imperial Age here, right? That they don't exist. You're very limited in terms of your options of the Rus. It's all about clumping attack ships and then booming them off the water with the demo ships, right? The problem is, when you talk about hitting Castle, if your opponent is able to be on the water long enough to hit Castle, the war junks immediately destroy your attack ships. Because one of the biggest issues I've seen Rus players have is at the start of the game, the limitation for you isn't necessarily the size of your fleet, or even the resources to convert your fishing boats. It actually becomes the room to tech. Because every time you choose to do one of these techs, that's time you're not producing out this dock. And unless you have a huge, insurmountable lead over your opponent where you've got 2 additional docks over him, it becomes very hard to combat them. It also means that if you ever surrender the waterfront, you don't have a comeback moment. Because you need to build docks and have enough time to get these researchers. And make no mistake, a lot of these researchers are important in Castle. Look at this. The 200 health per ship. Insane. The extra armor. A beaut on top. Not to mention the weapon range, which is very important when you're talking about a clump of over 20 boats. So all these details tell you that if you're playing Rus, you need to dominate in Feudal. You can't wait until Castle. Doing so usually forfeits the game. So let's see if he's able to hit that timer, because it's very difficult against China. China, who can move out and place a Barbican in the sun here, and if they do that, you're not going to do anything to them. You can't move them with the attack ships because they're so squishy. Look at this. Scouts actually going to pick off the villager. Wow. Okay, even after forcing Spearman out of MarineLorD, you're pretty happy for VortiX with that. So, you screw him over by killing his villy. You don't stop the dock going up, but here's the important detail. That villager probably was going to be on build duty here. He was probably going to be building the Barb in the Sun when you get to it. Instead, MarineLorD now has this kind of flimsy situation where he went early into Spearman. But there's a good reason behind this. Look at this. He's already moved the scouts across, and he's looking to move the spears across, but he's doing it against the wrong civ. We saw Viper do this, I believe it was Viper, yesterday, and it also happened a little bit with BC versus VortiX, if I recall correctly. We've seen it a few times. I've seen too many Boulder Bays. The point is, this is the meta shift right now in Boulder Bay. You build a Rax early, you build 5 or 6 spearmen, and you rush them across to burn your opponent's dock. It doesn't work against the Rus, though. Because although normally it would have taken him 35 seconds to get that first attack ship, because of the conversion, he gets it out in 20 seconds. And all of a sudden, you've lost value in this strategy. So you now have to find it elsewhere. And he's going to try to. He moves in to try and interrupt the gold line. Remember, because you're playing on the water, you can't just rely on the normal strategies, Rus. You can't just rely on hunting and then trading and get up to castle without having anyone on gold. You actually need surplus gold to build into your fleet. Meanwhile, on the other side, MarineLorD, he hasn't protected this. Because he gambled on the spear play, instead of just hunkering down, he was trying to be overly aggressive, and it means that he doesn't have the Barbican of Sun in location to protect his docks, and it means he can't start to build a fleet out here. I think this is a missed trick, and it might end up hurting him. And here we go. It's going to be a wooden fortress being dropped. And these spearmen, they do such pathetic damage. 6 damage per strike. It's so hard to get through these villages that you might be lucky if you kill 1 Villy total before this wooden fortress goes up. MarineLorD, what's the option going to be? I think he's doing defensive. I was about to say, I don't think you can go out to do the Barb in the Sun now. It's going to be too late, really, especially with the Scout already there. And he doesn't want to invest more in Spearmen just yet because he's kind of capped on the food side, right? So Spears have to back off. There's still a boat here that can easily convert in time to protect, if need be. And in fact, I think VortiX is intending to do that now. Yeah, he's already got one sitting. Oh my god, what? Okay, that is smart. So I think he left it there amongst the fishing boats on purpose to bait MarineLorD in. And it actually worked. He almost sniped out one or two of these spearmen. Oh man, I love these small details. Small things like this just go the extra mile. It gives you the edge. When you have to think about it this way, right? Like, your economy is so condensed and so small early on. Losing 1 or 2 extra units here or there, an extra 60 food, an extra 100 food, whatever it is, it hurts a lot. It slows down a lot of your initial scalability. And also, it means that usually you're the one then behind and you can't dictate the flow as easily of the early game. And here we go. Second dock now coming down from VortiX. He's ramping up. MarineLorD finally has teched up, but I don't think he's getting the junk count in time. Oh my god, this is going to be so... No, he's not. So remember the Scout. Is he animation canceling? VortiX isn't, like, prioritizing animation cancel, but he's going to set fire to the dock, and he's already got a fishing... not a fishing boat, sorry, a Lodger attack ship here. So you're going to have to run a villager out to try and fix this quickly. I just don't think you're going to be quick enough. He did get a second dock, but it still means minus 150 wood, which is frustrating. And that's why he starts to focus fire on the Scout, and they'll be back away here. So maybe you keep this up. You need to get a villager out now. It looks like he actually played that perfectly. So he will manage to keep the dock alive. He gets the first junk out. And these junks match up quite well against attack ships. Notice the 400 health there compared to 650. Also, you do 32 damage with every 2 seconds before reductions as the junks, right? As you can see, you do the 2 bursts for 8 damage with 2 different archers, right? Meanwhile, on the Lodger attack ship side, you can see the damage is higher, right? It's... Well, it's not, is it higher? What am I about? I've got my numbers. Yes, it is higher. My brain tonight. Yes, it is higher, and it's one because it's 1 more burst, right? Same damage, 1 more burst. But the health difference is what matters here, guys. You have got more resistance, and that can give you a potential edge. But the detail that I'm looking towards here, notice I keep hovering here. It's not even for the attack speeds. I'm looking at the movement speed. It's 1.5 on both sides. So if you start to retreat, chase will be given, and MarineLorD will always keep up with you. There we go. Pushes him back. That's going to expose the fishing boats, though. And that just might be what MarineLorD starts to go for. Oh, and the fishing boats are moving towards him. He's kind of baiting him in a little here. Wait, is he... How many of these is he converting? Not all of them. VortiX? That was a bit dicey. He dragged the whole fleet, but he didn't need to. He did convert some of these to attack ships, and now he's pushing in. And MarineLorD, he still hasn't got the Barb in the Sun to defend him here. And with this many ships, they might just pressure him off. A little bit concerned. The good news for him right now is MarineLorD is too contested. He can't actually build his fishing fleet on the water. And that's your end goal, right? Like, you want to control the water so you can get access to that economy. He's not really slowing down VortiX's scalability here, and he's also slowly being outmassed, as we can see on the count. Now up to 10 compared to the 5. And VortiX already ready for the tech up. It's underway as well. There we go. He's going to push in. And remember, you can drive by. You're not targeting a direction. Every time MarineLorD turns around to try and retreat, he's not firing, so he can't actually afford to give ground here. Not that there's much ground left to give. Well, unless you want to be on literal ground in this situation. And as a result, VortiX just shifting out the injured ships one by one. He might even switch these back over to fishing boats if he wanted to. But for the moment, they can just sit back at base, slowly heal up and guard against the Spearman harassment. And he actually calls it so quickly. There it is. I said that this series would not wait around. And so far, you know what, folks? That has held true, as game number 2 will go the way of VortiX. The score is now 1-1 apiece. And the reasoning behind that for MarineLorD, by the way, it might look a little bit premature to some of you. You might be like, oh, I mean, you know, he wasn't quite out of this yet. VortiX hadn't completely annihilated him yet. He hadn't completed his tech up. Yes, that is true. But here's the important detail. You've just lost on the waterfront. You've invested a lot in those junks. You've invested in 2 docks as well. You're kind of in for a penny, in for a pound. You understand at this level, someone like MarineLorD, he's smart enough to understand that he's behind by a mile. And also, his opponent must be close to tech up, because when you look at the number of ships that have been scaling, more bang for buck is being achieved for VortiX. He's got a fishing fleet, but you don't. And it gives you that that know-how to understand that your opponent is definitely going to be quicker on the tech up. And if you allow VortiX to reach Castle Age first, and you get completely blocked off the water, which with the big gap between them, you would be sieged off the water, it means you can't even have that comeback we talked about, right? Where China is superior in Castle and Imperial on the sea. Because then your concern becomes the fact that he's easily secured the waterfront, and I haven't got a land army. So all he's going to do is run at me with horse archers, and then I'm going to be pinned into a base with his economy doubling me up. And that's exactly why he gives it up, because the other ripple-on effect with that against the Rus as well is they get all the relics, right? So they get gold trickle, and then he gets access to trade on the sea. It's just all this rippling factor. It's why there's so much pressure put onto controlling the sea in Boulder Bay unless you go for some sort of cheeky land rush. A lot of players try to all in for that first before falling back to a secondary strategy. But MarineLorD, he could have attempted a secondary strategy, but considering how far behind he was, he makes the smarter choice to just say, this game is done. The last thing I want is to spend the next 20 minutes on it, give him a morale boost, and just be tilted by the end. I'm going to GG out now. I tried a play. It wasn't optimal here. Reset. Go next. Game number 3 between MarineLorD and VortiX. It comes down to this, and it's a switcheroo. They're both using civs that the other has used in this series so far. That should narrow it down pretty quickly for you guys. We're going to have VortiX on the French and MarineLorD on the Rus to decide this one here. BO1 Barn Burner. Here we come to decide the first person to make it into the grand finals here in Winter Series 2, hosted by EGC. And it's going to be decided here on the most classico of maps. Everyone who's played Age of Empires 2 can probably just gather what this is by itself. It's dry Arabia. The terrain might look different, but you definitely get the same feel of openness, of exposure, of potential pressure. And in that type of situation, that's something VortiX might be able to actually net a win out of. And it's really going to be on MarineLorD to defend himself appropriately. And the first thing I'm looking at is woodlines. This woodline is juicy. I like using that word, but it's appropriate here. So, wait, wrong side. There we go. This woodline, less juicy. So VortiX doesn't really have to care about tight woodlines because he's going to be on the aggressive at the start of this game, right? So he'll be safe. He's got his gold line behind him. Everything is nicely kind of compacted together. He can shift towards stone quickly if he wants to go for a TC spam. Meanwhile, MarineLorD, he has one wood line, and it's not even pushed against the edge of the map. This is not a fun spawn for a Rus player up in this matchup. What you prefer is what VortiX got here, right? An area where you could wall, so you can get one of the, get control of one of these choke points. You can then easily exploit this with one wooden fortress to cover you here, and then the northern route in is kind of protected anyway by the TC. Instead, you don't get that option though. You haven't really got these natural choke points if you're MarineLorD. It's just a lot of open ground. And while you could play an incredibly compact type of strategy, like we see a lot out of these Rus players, where you just pro scouts, drag the carcasses back, and then harvest everything you need in your economy into a castle under your TC, there is going to come a potential exposure point via knights if VortiX actually ramps up the pressure. The alternative that VortiX can do, and I'm a big fan of it in this matchup, if you understand that MarineLorD is going to still be able to actually outdo you on the pro scouts and snatch away a lot of the carcasses, a cool play can actually be to secondary TC and then ramp up into your castle age just as quickly as him, but outscale his economy. We'll see if he opts for that. I do expect him to play aggressively into knights. It's just really powerful for the French right now. And it would give him a quick timing for closing this out versus the gamble of going up against horse archers plus something else, right? And we've seen how lethal horse archers are right now. They still haven't been patched. They still haven't been fixed. I hope we do get a resolution to that soon because it feels like we've been waiting a century and a half for it to occur. So far, MarineLorD getting a lot of these deer. VortiX didn't really contest him. And in fact, VortiX, he even went for a second scout. So this was a little bit rough considering. You were hoping you just about prevent him from getting second tier already, but not able to do so. So MarineLorD already on his way. Remember that the Rus are one of the quickest civs to achieve Tech 2 because they are able to gather their gold via hunting. So they actually save a decent chunk of time gathering, and that gives them that lead. But you can see that VortiX is not far behind him, right? And they're investing the same amount of people. So VortiX probably first off at the start of France's feudal age, he'll look to get that knight out and then just cycle across and see what's happening in the Rus space. We have seen some experimentation with the Rus recently, by the way. There's been a lot of thought around hunting cabins in the strategy, also man-at-arms starting to crop up. This isn't the game for that. I think against France, they play a little bit too fast and a bit too raidy for you to utilize hunting cabins. And also, Dry Arabia is a wonky map for hunt cabin spams. You have got these initial tree lines, which are really nice, but they're very hard to defend. They're kind of far out. And it's not your high view, right? Where you've got that double value of, I'll plop it next to this tree line, and there's always a stealth forest somewhere, right? So you achieve like 40, 50 gold trickle per minute. Instead, you're probably going to get like 20 to 30 gold trickle on average in a lot of cases, and that takes a lot longer to actually pay back as cost, which means it's a risky investment that could be burned down at any point by knights. MarineLorD did get a nice spawn in this berry bush, by the way. Really tight, compact kind of formation. Usually you do get this a lot of the time out of Dry Arabia. Both players will look to probably exploit this quickly. And as long as VortiX can actually maintain the flow in the mid game and keep his opponent pinned in, he will be able to start exploiting pocket economies as France does. My only concern is if this does drag out too late, MarineLorD is playing Roos. And if he plays into Horse Archers, he's going to be raiding as well, okay? You're not the only one who gets to be the looter in this party, right? So, tech up complete. And Pro Scouts already underway. That's going to be an edge. That edge for MarineLorD will allow him to actually gather up the carcasses a little bit quicker here. And you can see MarineLorD already 2 scouts up over his opponent. VortiX is trying to fix that now. And VortiX didn't even bother with the first knight. So, didn't feel like he actually had the wiggle room. I respect that, though. You're up against the Roos. They're going for the Castle Age rush strat. If you try to hang around with even a single knight, you're going to fall behind, and you're going to give the or the majority, rather, of deer over to your opponent. And that'll make your Pro Scouts investment less valuable, right? And it'll hurt. Even with the reductions as the French. So MarineLorD just trying to keep VortiX back because he has a number of advantages you can't engage. And Pro Scouts is about to be complete, so snatch from his opponent first. Oh, wow. VortiX is engaging this. It's not a good fight for him right now. He's going to... Oh, my God. He almost lost that scout. And there you go. They'll start to snatch up the carcasses. They'll block him out and look to retreat away with the goodies. VortiX is quite lucky he didn't lose a scout there. That final hit, like, I think MarineLorD could have cut across still, but he didn't want to waste time. He got the edge, and now he's pushing it. And he's also gathering at the back. I actually prefer this play. I see too many players right now with Roos go up to 5 scouts initially before they have Pro Scouts. And then they're like, oh, I'll take 5 carcasses away from my opponent. And it seemed cool at the time, but what we quickly noticed is the meta shifted towards the, I'm going to take your carcasses while you take mine, right? So it's just like the most pointless trade. You might as well just take your own carcasses. You would be much more happy. I think this is the optimal way to do it. 3 to 4 maximum over to your opponent's corpses. And in the meantime, have 1 or 2 of your scouts, which are now being produced up, right, taking the nearby carcasses. So what you're doing is you're alleviating the risk associated with taking your opponent's corpses, right? Because, well, if they come over, there's less to grab here. And it looks like he is just going to stop at the 3. That's going to give him the edge. And because VortiX now is pressured to take his own corpses, especially when he's playing up against the Roos, it means that we should easily see MarineLorD secure the rest of these carcasses on his side of the map, giving him a net yield of an extra almost... Well, not even almost, 1,050? Yeah, 1,050 extra food to get through underneath his TC. So now I'm kind of in a state where I come back to the, what is the plan, VortiX? Because if you're just going to hunting with Roos, you're going to allow him to reach his power spike with no sort of impediment. And you're already at one of your power spikes as France. And that's why VortiX is now getting a few of these knights. But he needs to find a way to use them quickly. Remember, this window closes quickly. We're already at almost 7.5 minutes. Most of these Roos players are looking at like an 8.5 to 9 minute timing. And you can see MarineLorD is looking to crack a fast one here. Halfway through on the Abbey of Trinity, 8 people building it. It's going to be an 8-minute timer on Castle Age. And you need to breach fast. So VortiX on the move. This is smart. If he's good with this and he sneaks in and takes away a bunch of these carcasses, it will stunt the ability of MarineLorD to scale up his army. There will be a gap in his production lines, even with a quick castle. He will be fine for the first 10, 20 horse archers, but after that, he's going to have an awkward shift over point in his economy. And that might be exploitable, considering that VortiX is playing as the French and already is outscaling him on the village account. Knights moving in. Should force the garrison. Oh, he already gets one of the villies. The scouts are blocking him. He can't get through. Okay, MarineLorD. He's such a gem at this. Look at the way he body blocks him. He can't get through. He will sneak in with a few scouts in the end. But they are going to get sniped out one by one. And the focus fire comes out. The TC's fully garrisoned. Second scout will fall. But I think he can still pick that up. So he's going to make off with at least 2, maybe 3. That final arrow is not good enough. He does get out, and he turns around with his knights to harass away the scouts himself. So draws away 3 of these carcasses, snipes out a villager as well. And MarineLorD, he minimized the casualties there, by the way. That should have been 10 times worse. Notice what he done in the choke points. He immediately clicked into the choke points. He didn't even look to like right-click engage his opponents. He just wanted to stand there. He wanted to buy time. This is something that MarineLorD has already presented time and time again in this tournament. He's fantastic and ahead of everyone else at. He understands how to utilize choke points to minimize casualties or to exploit a disadvantage right in the matchup. And there's a sheer disadvantage here, right? It's knights coming at you and a scout count that matches yours. You're not going to win that fight. So instead, MarineLorD, he condenses his troops and he optimizes the loss rate, right? Where it's like 1 or 2 in a choke point, maximum being hit. And that slows him down long enough that VortiX, while he still does make off with some carcasses, it wasn't as many as he wanted. If anything, he evened up the count. The only upside he really got out of that is that he was able to snipe out another villager, which puts him 1 more ahead. And now onto the stone. I'm loving out of VortiX. This is the play. This is how you do it. Screw rushing into castle. What does castle achieve you right now? If you build on a castle up against Rus, you just end up chasing after horse archers you can never hit. If you get a TC and you hunker down and you survive the initial raids, and when I say survive, with a second TC, you can survive having lost X amount of villages more, right? Like 10, 15 villages. If you can get past that phase and then get towards castle naturally with the TC scaling you eventually better anyway, then you are in a much better position to take this game at the 20, 25 minute mark than MarineLorD will be. But that is conditional upon MarineLorD not finding good value right now. The first point would be if he can get his hands on some carcasses. Second point is if he can stick some arrows in some villages. TC is going to be complete. MarineLorD too late to stop this, and now he can't breach. He was looking for the gold line. That would actually been a big deal. You would have slowed down the rate of knights coming out, and you would have continued to churn out your own horse archers, but instead you don't have that option anymore. And remember that defensive element we were talking about that would have been so juicy for MarineLorD, right? With the double tree line here, the ease of defense with 1 outpost. Well, that now applies to VortiX. VortiX has covered his northern side and his gold for this foreseeable future, at least for the short future, with this TC. If he wants, he can then also wall on the south side, a palisade shift out here, and then 1 to block the crossing here would be perfect, and it would prevent MarineLorD from doing anything while you continue to scale up. MarineLorD, he's still looking for the steal. You need so many horse archers. He's going to try and make the move now. Villagers need to actually back in. VortiX, there we go, garrisons him just in time. And here we go, MarineLorD, he's looking for the snatch. He only grabs 1 though. And he might be sniped still. Just about gets away with it, but that wasn't the yield he was looking for. I think he lost 1 horse archer, maybe 2 scouts. Only killed 1 scout in response. And every time you fail to do this, every time you try to go it again, there's going to be more troops to repel you next time, right? We can see that the archer ranges are now being dropped by VortiX, so he's looking to de-aggro the situation. Meanwhile, MarineLorD, he's looking for a sneak in. He wants to split attention. He wants to snipe onto the wood line while also gathering up the carcasses. That's the optimal situation. Here we go, move straight in. MarineLorD focuses on the villagers, though. Gets 1, backs away. Guildhall currently underway for VortiX, and MarineLorD will back off again. But VortiX, he's outranking him. It's a 10 villi difference now. Remember, this second TC, it's even better for the French because every 17 seconds you're producing villagers. And, well, in the next minute, it's every 16 seconds when this Guildhall is complete. These scouts, MarineLorD? Oh, he's microing. He's microing for the sacred sites. Luckily, this scout is just that. Yeah, it's not seen. It's hidden by the tree. That would be annoying because you might forget about the carcass afterwards. Meanwhile, Knight's moving out. And this is what we're talking about, right? This is frustration. Look at that damage. That damage is absurd. It's 4 missile resistance, and it just doesn't matter. But he will get back. And all sacred sites are under the control of MarineLorD. So VortiX, he has a finite amount of time to work with. In fact, I better start that sacred site victory timer. It's at, 1 second. Let's say 12:30. I think 12:30 was about right. To move that from the 3v3s up here. So here you go. 12:30. Sacred site has been triggered. Fixed amount of time to work with here. What's the play going to be? Arbitrators or archers? Probably just archers. Archers that are meant to be the counter to horse archers, but currently aren't due to their slightly juiced form with their kind of buggy attack speed, right? In the meantime, Knight's going to move out. I like this. Not enough players do this. Don't let MarineLorD sit here like this. This is vision, right? Vision, like, is power, right? Like, information is power. Knowledge is power, or if you want to be technical with the term. And power is everything. So don't give it over for free. Scouts will finally back away. Has MarineLorD yet noticed he's carrying 350 food here? I feel like he totally forgot. At first, I wonder if he just done it out of spite, but now I genuinely think he forgot that it's there. He just focused on the aggression. He's moving in. Archer range on the front is very aggressive from VortiX, but he needs the room, right? He's running out of room behind his base. Knights have to back away again. Villagers being sniped out in the meantime. You have to do more than that, though. It's still a 10-point eco lead after those 2 villagers being sniped. Archer range is going to be complete. The count is amassing. Remember, these are vet archers. One-on-one, they don't compare to the horse archers, but price-wise, they are a bit cheaper. And you could think about Arbitrators here if you're France, but I don't like it against horse archers, mainly because horse archers, if they see you deploy Pavises, which a good player will pay attention to, they'll just move away. Because remember, the moment that you deploy Pavises, it goes on cooldown for 30 seconds, and if you move, you lose that Pavise. For those that forgot what the Pavise is, it's a shield that the Arbitrators, the crossbowmen of France, put down that gives them an additional 5 ranged armor, which is incredible up against these horse archers, but sucks because, as I mentioned, it only works while you're standing still. Coming in again. It's going to be baited out. Whoopsie. They're engaging, though. The Warrior Monk is here as well, so they're getting buff damage and armor, which means he can hold out, and MarineLorD pushes in. Knights have to retreat away. Villagers are going to have to garrison here. Archer count is not lasting. MarineLorD is just pummeling through him. The only good side of this after it is that, remember, that because it's only horse archers, you won't be able to siege the base, so VortiX will survive this. But the trade is starting to balance out a bit now. Warrior Monks need to back away. The horse archers, so many of them died in the TC. MarineLorD, he overrated the power of that striking. He thought he was good. He didn't respect the 20 villagers sitting in the town center that made all the difference in the world. And if only you could eat the horses here, you would be sustained on the food front for a year. Because so many cavalry units just died here. That's a big dent in the melee count. Still at 20 horse archers. Knights now need to be rebuilt by VortiX. But VortiX, I like this. Outposts. Starting to cover that crawl out, right? Getting the siege workshop as well could be incredible here. If you get some mangonels out, you could totally change this game. However, the villagers need to back up. Knights pushing out. Archers moving in. They'll look to snipe out. Scouts get on top of them. Knights going to engage as well. Villagers looking to resume the building of this outpost to give them the edge. And they're being ignored because he has to deal with the military units here. He switches over to the villagers now, but it's too late. Garrison's going to come out. It's going to force him away. And the Knights will... Oh, my God, they live. 3 and 6 health. And he has chivalry, so if he sits them back somewhere, eventually they'll be useful again. But he finally gets it. He needed that as well. Look at this, right? Right now, his wood is very capped because he's producing so many of these archers. He actually also doesn't have room in his base, so he couldn't, for those 2 reasons, afford to transition into farmland. So he needs these berries to buy him another 2-3 minutes while he builds up a defense force. After that, expect to see VortiX hard pivot into farmlands and try to wall up and palisade around on these choke points here so that he's able to easily create a farmland area that isn't going to be raided by these horse archers. And here's the other risk. I think MarineLorD knows as well. I think VortiX gave it away, right? It's 3 archery ranges. He's kind of suspicious that something's going on back here, and he's going to discover quite the jackpot if he keeps running. Sees the berry bushes, moves in, sees the mill. Can't go in though, it's too risky. He'd be pinned in the corner with nowhere to run, so he will back away. And that was too close for comfort. That would have been a lot of villages to lose with nowhere to run and hide, right? With the horse archers, you would have probably killed off 15 of these villages before they get back to safety. So really good move out there from VortiX to read that. And importantly, he keeps doing that. He just needs to mirror, right? It's that blocker role. You're not meant to win right now. You're just meant to prevent MarineLorD from doing so. I do see a problem in this at this rate, though. That Sacred Site is still ticking. And it's not just the fact you need to decap it to stay in the game. It's the gold trickle. Look at the numbers right now. 2k surplus from MarineLorD. And now the horse archers is going to punish him. So many villages on the food line. This is the upside downside of multi-TCs. You get so many villages. And if you're on the defensive constantly, how do you use them? They bleed through all your natural close-by defendable resources so quickly, you have to take risks. And that's why you need this pivot point. You need to be able to actually convert that extra eco power into military. And that's where VortiX has been struggling. With the Mangonel now, he may be able to make a move. The problem is he has to make a move very soon. All right, we are just, what, 4 minutes away from triggering a Sacred Site victory. And he's still not been able to decap any of these. And here we go. This is his prep. He does this on purpose. This is intentional for VortiX. He's setting up so he can ride out. If he didn't put down these walls beforehand, MarineLorD could have rode around the back, sniped his economy while he was away from home with the army, right? That's that whole idea. When you're playing horse archers, or you're playing any type of raiding people, Magadai as well, you want to strike at the village while the hunters are out looking for food, right? Because everyone left in base can't defend themselves. So these palisades will buy vital time as he pushes out. And now, yeah, there's the switch over. These are early knights. They will be upgraded soon, though. And that is going to be a problem. I was waiting for this switch, right? He saved up all this gold. MarineLorD, he could have used this to convert and then go for Imperial Age. And Imperial Age is nice, right? But I see too many players bait themselves by going Imp Age. Imp Age is really overrated for the Rus. If you're already ahead, why do you need the additional range on the archers, right? Or the elite status? It's nice, but would you not rather have a knight spam to close the game out now? And with his TC expansion as well, because he's unpressured, he's going to scale his economy to support these knights and these horse archers consistently. And remember, VortiX, he's only building archers right now. Archers and Arbaletriers. The Arbaletriers will do reasonably against the knights, but without a front line, you are just going to get shredded. And he's hiding it as well. Look at this. Wraps to the east. Doesn't want to reveal his hand, right? He's just raiding with horse archers in the meantime, preventing the walls from going up. As VortiX is trying to negotiate a peace settlement where he gets something in this map. But MarineLorD is having none of it. Here we go. Rides out. Looking to decap the zone. MarineLorD, you could let him have this and it wouldn't matter. You just want him to keep coming out. The further out he is with a static force like this, the more likely you get the death kill. Death kill? The death strike. Death and kill are related, in fairness. What I mean by that is, if you have to run back at any point, you can't turn around and fight, and this army gets bled dry, and you don't get a good trade, the game's over. And here it comes. The wraparound from the back. MarineLorD, he pinches him. And he is exposed it straight onto the Mangonel before it gets a second shot. Just about gets it off, but it is going to be burnt. And now look how quickly you're dying to the Knights. The combined arms of the Rus are reigning supreme, and France is not long for this world. Second Mangonel is being burnt by the religious figures of the Rus. That's going to fall. Everything has gone wrong here. And VortiX, without an army and with Knights plowing towards his base, will give the game over. Series will be won by MarineLorD. Game, set, and match here on Dry Arabia. Oh, that was so well played by MarineLorD. So well played. So many players would continue to just build horse archers, especially when you have a sacred site victory condition, right? And if you had done that, this game might have been different. I've seen way too many players, countless players at the top level, the best of the best, sit there and non-stop just spam the crap out of horse archers with no game plan. But that's what makes MarineLorD one the best, possibly the best at this point in Age of Empires. He doesn't sit on his laurels. He doesn't just rely on a tactic. He converts it into a strategy. He understands that with Knights, taking one big fight in the center will lead to his victory, regardless of whether his opponent decaps the sacred site or not. That's not the important detail anymore, because now that he has Knights, he doesn't have to rely upon those sacred sites. Remember, the biggest weakness of horse archer spam for the Rus is you end up with no way of winning other than sacred sites. Maybe wonder victories, but no, especially in we're not talking wonder victories ever in 1v1s. So your victory condition has to be the sacred sites, right? And MarineLorD has shown you exactly how you should utilize them. Just because that's victory in the title doesn't mean that that's how you have to get your victory. It leads to your victory by baiting your opponent out when he wants to chill for longer. You saw it. VortiX had gotten through the initial safe resources. He wanted to move out to new fronts, right? He wanted to secure new areas. He wasn't ready to win the game. He was only ready to scale. And MarineLorD identifying this where most Rus players would have not and would just continue to stubbornly build horse archers is exactly how he wins the game. He ignores Imperial, he transitions ahead of time into Knights, where most players tend to wait until they have to transition. And remember, if you transition ahead, you're in a position of power. If you transition when you're behind, right, if he waited to bring out Knights after he's been pressured in his own base, it's too late. You can't get the counter out in a large enough quantity. They're probably not upgraded, and you're already close to losing the game. So really well played by MarineLorD. Secures this one, 2-1 overall, and once again, our hype series delivers, right? They've done it the first time around. Winter Series 1, it was VortiX MarineLorD. And again, Winter Series 2, VortiX, the kryptonite to his Superman seems to just always be MarineLorD, as he's going to be the first person to make it through to the grand finals. But we need a second opponent, which is why, after a short break, we will return for the second series today, which is going to be Viper. I'm kidding you. It's not Viper. It's the lad that slayed Viper. It is going to be Don Hardy versus Lucifron. Now, Lucifron, some people say he's the favorite, but after what Don Hardy done to Viper 2-0ing him, he's the dark horse. Anything is possible here, but they all have their own stake to show. Don Hardy now has a name to live up to after slaying the snake. Lucifron, well, he's got a brother to avenge in the grand final. Both of them have their own reasons to want to be there, alongside the money up for grabs and the space in the bigger tournament later this month. We're just going to have to see who has more va-va-voom in the voom. That's definitely a thing.